it was the hardest journey we've ever had, I think, from commission to making it.
Doctor Who The Collection Season 8 is out today on Blu-ray, but it was supposed to be out a lot sooner. Of course, we all know what happened last year that delayed productions worldwide. I've done an in-depth interview with Chris Chapman, who is the director and producer of a whole multitude of Doctor Who special features for DVD and Blu-ray. Chris also directs Countryfile for the telly. We're going to be talking about the 3 films that Chris has shot for the Season 8 box set, namely The Direct Route, Devil's Weekend and Terence and Me. In this, appropriately enough, the first of a 4-part series, Chris is going to tell us how he managed to make Doctor Who special features, very special features indeed I might add, during a pandemic. My supporters at Patreon, by the way, have already been given access to an omnibus edition of the whole hour-long chat with Chris. Chris Chapman, thank you so much for joining us here at Jason Arnopp's terrifying House of Obsession.
That's okay, Jason. It's a pleasure.
Marvellous. And we are going to talk about, it's really exciting to talk about 3 of the films that you've made for this.
Aha, there it is.
Yeah, there it is. Have you got one yet?
No, you have one. I don't have one yet. I know. Is it beautiful? Is it lovely and...
Yeah, it's really nice.
Oh, look at it.
A 3D actual object and everything.
Ooh. Show me the bottom again. Oh, nice.
Yeah, yeah.
I love it. I love those designs that Lee does. And we tend not to get our copies until, well, we normally get it around release, but with COVID, it might not be for a while this time.
There's just no justice in this world, Chris.
I've seen it loads of times. I'm done for now, but it's lovely having them on the shelf. It's a real sense of satisfaction to kind of see them up there.
Oh God, absolutely. I mean, that's part of what the fans love about it all. And what we're going to talk about today is these 3 films, but not just that. The fact that you made them, you've made these films during a pandemic, essentially. During a pandemic, I think that viewers, they would have understood if the special features in this box set had been essentially a bunch of Zoom calls, much like this one, right? And instead what you've done are just absolutely lavish, they're extraordinary films. And Terence and Me, I think, is one of the finest Doctor Who documentaries I've ever seen. I'm sure you're loath to choose between your own babies. Well, let's go right back to the start of this particular process. I'm interested in how the commissioning process works. When you find out that, Season 8, for instance, is next up, what do you do? Do you come up with ideas and pitch?
Yeah. So I guess we must have started talking about Season 8 towards the tail end, second half, certainly, of 2019. And so I get an email from Russell Minton, who's the executive producer across the whole of the box sets, the collection range. He's a lovely chap. And he would have said to me, Season 8, what have you got? And then it's my job to basically, almost back of a fag packet, kind of write down a few top line descriptions of, well, we could do this, and we could do this, and we could do this. And I guess that it always starts with the practicality. And it's kind of a terrible practicality, but it starts with that figuring out of, blimey, who's alive? It sounds awful. And which locations are still out there, or which stories had locations, which stories had stories to tell of what happened behind the scenes, which things have already been done on DVD to death and we should do a different way this time. And so I think I pitched Russell, I would have pitched him 4 or 5 ideas. And I obviously pitched him the 3 that we did, that we're talking about today, which is Terence and Me, which was a Terence Dix tribute, and Devil's Weekend, which was going to be a big revisit of Oldbourne for the Demons, and we were going to do the Direct Route, which was a new series of directors revisiting locations on a big road trip. And I think on top of that, I said, or you could do a Doctor's Table, where we get like Katie and John and Richard Franklin, and maybe Damaris from the Demons or someone like that, and have them around the table like we did on season 23. I don't know what the last one would have been. Maybe I was pitching like a Toby one, like a Looking For or something. But I'll always pitch maybe 4 or 5, thinking I'll get 1 or 2. And actually on this one, Russell came back and said, I really like these 3. Have you got time to go away and do 3? And so at the beginning of the story, you think, off we go. And 2020 starts as you'd expect it to, with us deep in prep for all three films, aiming to film them all in March before I started on Countryfile in April for the BBC. And we filmed the direct route at the beginning of March, when people were talking about COVID. And I was, phoning hotels and saying, whoa, what are your COVID precautions? And they'd be talking about washing hands and all that kind of, it was that early days of mild panic. And I remember Tim Coombe phoning me up and saying, Chris, what about this COVID thing then? Are you happy with this COVID thing? And me being very, reassuring, but also probably quite naive, as we all were at the beginning of March last year. And then the big twist we had was I was en route. I was in the car full of kit en route to Cambridge to film what was going to be the first day for Terence and me with Frank Skinner. And midway through that journey from Bristol to Cambridge, on the news, on the radio, it all went mad that day. And that was the day of Boris's first press conference. And literally I turned the car around and stopped, and I phoned everybody, and I spoke to, because we were going to film Terence and me Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then Devil's Weekend, Saturday, Sunday. We're going to do it all in one block. And I pulled the plug. Yes. And stood everything down and thought, this may not happen again. This may never happen. The extent of that is we'd flown Terence Dicks's childhood friend, Richard Mansfield. We'd flown him from Canada to Cambridge in order for us to interview him with Frank Skinner.
Oh my God!
We had to send him back. And it was a really hard decision, but it was that moment I think we all felt with COVID, where you thought, I don't know how far this is going to go. In that kind of mid to late March point, you thought, is this going to end up as Mad Max or something? How apocalyptic are we going here?
There was a kind of a week, wasn't there, in that period you're describing, where everything seemed to accelerate really, really horribly, and it felt like the rug was being pulled out from under your feet.
Yeah, completely. And at that stage, I had no guarantee that those two films would have been made, or that they wouldn't have been remounted as Zoom calls, as you say. And direct route would have been fine. That was all in the bag. But Terence and Devil's Weekend, no guarantee. And ultimately, after really kind of 4 or 5 months of us sitting on our hands thinking, we need this to get safer, we need the world to get safer in order for us to put people like Terence Dicks's octogenarian widow, on screen. We need this to be safe and not compromise it. And it took until the late summer that we thought actually things seemed to be loosening and getting better, and there were more ways out there of how you can run a safe set, how you can temperature check and social distance and wear masks and gloves and film outdoors and all these things that can keep people safe. Because I want to make Doctor Who documentaries, but I don't want to kill Doctor Who people. I don't want to kill Katie Manning. I don't want to kill Elsa Dix. I don't want to kill Frank Skinner. And so it was the hardest journey we've ever had, I think, on the VAM front, from commission to making it. And I was so grateful to everybody that in October, first weekend of October last year, we shot in Aldbourne for Devil's Weekend. I think pretty much first weekend of November, we shot, or kind of midweek actually in November, we shot the Terence Dicks piece, and then we delivered them all before Christmas, which was in itself a journey. All of the time, Countryfile going on for the BBC in the background at the same time. So it was a busy, it was a busy 10 months or so. But we did it, and they're different to how they would have been. I think in both cases they're better than how they would have been. But there were these alternate versions of both of the films that would have been shot in March that are different to how they were shot in the autumn, and will never be seen. But I think actually for the best, thankfully.
The films don't feel compromised at all. And, there are moments where people are saying hello to each other and they acknowledge they can't hug. I think I saw maybe one mask in both of those two later films. And so it doesn't feel compromised at all. I guess only you know what you wanted to do initially. I mean, they still feel vast, and I think Beyond the Call of Duty is kind of the headline for these movies. For these films. I mean, they feel like movies. They certainly feel cinematic, because unless you're using freakishly tall cameramen, I'm detecting quite extensive drone activity during the making of these films.
Well, yeah, we always wanted to. I mean, I think with all of these, we kind of come at them as we would a telly program, and the budgets are maybe 10% of what a telly program would be for a primetime slot. Made and the biggest impact that has is on time. You know, where normally an hour-long film like the Terrance Dicks film, you might spend, I don't know, you might be filming that for a couple of weeks on a broadcast slot, and we film that in 3 days.
Yeah,
you know, we film an hour-long thing that we want to really stand up. And a great way of increasing those production values is with drone photography. And we have a great chap called Toffer McGrillis, amazing name, Toffer McGrillis.
wow.
Who's a very talented cameraman as well. And he did all the drone filming for the Fury from the Deep documentary, which was very drone heavy. And then he did the droning on Direct Route and Devil's Weekend.
We're talking generally about the 3 films. We've told that story now. So let's go back and we'll talk about each film one by one. But first of all, I think we'd be remiss if we didn't kind of, paint some kind of broad brushstroke of what you've done before. I mean, we could easily have a video about all the films you've made for the DVD range, but and indeed we can make videos about the things you've made previously for the Blu-ray range. All of this is clearly rooted very much in your abiding love of Doctor Who. So let's just what was the first Doctor Who serial you ever saw? When did that love take root?
I'm kind of I'm a middle child, I think, of Doctor Who, in the fact that if you think of like older classic fans, new fans, I kind of, most of my existence was almost in the wilderness. The first Doctor Who stuff I watched was late Colin Baker. I have very vague memories of Trial, going out, and Scary Vervoid. That lady that they reveal her face and she's half Vervoid, I had a real impact. And Perry's death at the end of Mind Warp, and then really I think my parents, for some reason, maybe interesting decision, seemed to have me skip season 24 entirely, apart from a few bits of Dragonfire that I remember. And then the big impact is Remembrance of the Daleks was the thing that kind of made me a fan. Really, was Remembrance, and I would have been 7 or 8 when Remembrance went out.
Okay.
At a point, so I'm falling in love with Doctor Who at a time when the general public and a fair few of my friends in school aren't really very bothered at all.
Yeah.
And then spending the rest of the time thinking, when's it coming back? When's it coming back? Oh, it's Paul McGann. It's coming back. No, it's not coming back. It's not coming back. Okay, and then waiting and waiting for it to come back. So I grew up loving it and started working in telly, and then just realised actually this stuff's going on a topic that I love, with a lot of creative freedom to play, and so I came back into it, and we've done about 60 now, which is insane. I did about 40 docs on the DVD range and nearly 20 on the Blu-rays.
Wow.
And I hope the kind of ambition of them has grown as we've come on, and that we're now in a place where we do try and come at each one like, how big can we get this, and let's not feel shy about us being a DVD extra or whatever. Let's try and make this big and mad.
I mean, I think now that this series really is setting a new benchmark for, as you call it, VAM, aka value added material. I mean, it's more than it would. I think it would denigrate this stuff now to call it extras. Special features kind of covers it, but they are pretty special now.
I don't think we've invented a good name, have we? Because VAM is not a nice name, and special features sounds, I don't know, a bit quaint somehow these days. And DVD extras isn't accurate. I don't think Blu-ray extras trips off the tongue. So we need a new name. It's like Whovians. We don't have a good name for us as a people, and we don't have a good name for my job as what we do. But I kind of more and more see them as individual films, and like to talk about them as, that's that film, that's A Weekend with Waterhouse, or that's Showman, or Our Sarah Jane. And the lovely thing has been when you get these moments like Showman was premiered at the BFI on the big screen, and the Doctor Who Cookbook won an RTS award this year, and you think, well, these are now just documentaries that exist. and they just happen to be aired, if you like, to be transmitted via this a Blu-ray disc that you buy, but they're films that just exist, and in the same way that any kind of documentary or feature is out there, and that's kind of what I love about it at the moment, that they all stand alone, I think.
I hope you've enjoyed this first part of my 4-part chat with Chris. If the other 3 parts exist, then I will have put links around this screen to them so that you can carry on watching. If they don't exist yet, then you'll simply have to subscribe, won't you, so as to not miss them. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I also hope you enjoy the next one. Thanks for watching this video. I hope you've enjoyed it, and I also hope you enjoy the next one. Until then, don't forget to embrace your obsession.